We call on every nation, including China and Russia, to fully implement UN Security Council resolutions, downgrade diplomatic relations with the regime, and sever all ties of trade and technology.
Just last month, President Trump made an unprecedented 12-day trip to Asia, pushing for a united front against the threat of a nuclear North Korea. But now there are new reports tonight that China's helping the rogue regime, secretly shipping them oil, which violates UN sanctions. Here now, General Anthony Tata, who served in the Army for nearly 30 years before retiring in 2009. He is also the author of the brand new book, Direct Fire. Good to have you here, sir. So China signed on to these sanctions, but China's not abiding by them?
Well, China, normally when they agree with us, they abstain from a UN vote, and now they are trying to put a good face forward on this, Trish, I think. But about a year ago, they had 28% increase in trade with North Korea, and I think they're probably feeling a little bit of the sting, and they're probably funneling things to North Korea that they shouldn't, and they're fighting a proxy war with us through North Korea. They don't want to lose that North Korean buffer between the West and their border.
Okay, so they're basically telling us one thing and then doing another. I mean,
exactly.
I look at the Korean economy, the North Korean economy, $28 billion. It's not huge, but it's grown 3.9% most recently in the last year. And the #1 trading partner is China. We now get reports that basically the Chinese have been secretly giving them oil. So doing this trade transaction, if they're growing nearly 4% and their only partner to trade with is China, it means that China is not doing what it promised to do. So how do we go back at China and make them understand?
Well, I think we need to tighten the screws on China now, obviously, diplomatically. You think about fighting a war, and that's what we're doing with North Korea right now. It's just not a hot war. We've got diplomatic, information, military, economic elements of national power. And so what we're trying to do diplomatically was tighten the screws on North Korea and use Russia and China as pliers, to pop them, so to speak. But they're not doing their part, and Russia is not innocent in this thing as well. And so
but we have the purse strings, right? I mean, China doesn't have a lot of economic opportunity without us. We are crucial to China's success. So why don't we go back and say, okay, China, you want to keep trading with North Korea? Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to trade with the people you actually do need to trade with.
Well, I think that's the next step here. When we get verifiable evidence that China is actually not participating in the sanctions, and I think that what we do is we go to China, while we're also trying to deal with North Korea, and we go to China with Secretary Tillerson and Department of Treasury, and we go back and say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to crank down on these things that you like about being a trading partner with us, and you're not going to like the way we're moving forward.
General, we sanctioned one Chinese bank, Treasury did, and I think there's a whole host of others that we could sanction as well, because that's the other part of this. Those Chinese banks are doing enough business, somehow filtering this money through the North Koreans as well. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think Treasury could actually do something about this in a pretty big way before we start talking about actual force,
right,
which is your domain. I think that there's a lot of opportunity, at least on the economic front, for us to do more.
Well, I agree with you, and I think the president's new national security strategy supports exactly what you're just saying. They talk about protection. They talk about the prosperity of Americans. Well, there's a big linkage between prosperity in America and the Chinese economy, and so you have to sort of unpack that a little bit before we go in there, and you got to be very surgical about what we do.
Well, a lot of people tell me, well, the businesses won't like it. American companies
well, there's
will
a
go
huge second-order
because they don't want
impacts.
to lose this opportunity in
Right.
this huge market. But I keep saying, when it comes down to it, wouldn't we all rather lose dollars than lives?
That's right.
So this is the first opportunity.
That's why in the national security strategy, protection is #1, and then prosperity is #2 in President Trump's strategy.
Thank you for the book.
You're welcome.
I look forward to reading it.